we should be looking to create an umbrella of deterrence that goes much further than just Israel. Of course, I would make it clear to the Iranians that an attack on Israel would incur massive retaliation from the United States, but I would do the same with other countries in the region. We've got to deter other countries from feeling that they have to acquire nuclear weapons. You can't go to the Saudis or the Kuwaitis or UAE and others who have a legitimate concern about Iran and say, well, don't acquire these weapons to defend yourself unless you're also willing to say, we will provide a deterrent backup. And we will let the Iranians know that, yes, an attack on Israel would trigger massive retaliation, but so would an attack on those countries that are willing to go under the security umbrella and forswear their own nuclear ambitions. And one of the ways of testing it is to make it very clear that we are not going to permit them, if we can prevent it, from becoming a nuclear power. But were they to become so, their use of nuclear weapons against Israel would provoke a nuclear response from the United States, which personally I believe would prevent it from happening. I go back and look at what we did during the Cold War. You know, I remember it very well because I'm old enough to have been told to get under my desk in case we were attacked by the Soviet Union. I never understood what that was about, but we all did it, remember? And with respect to Iran, I have advocated vigorous diplomatic engagement.
You said if Iran were to strike Israel, there would be massive retaliation. Scary words. Does massive retaliation mean you'd go into Iran, you would bomb Iran? Is that what that's supposed to suggest?
Well, the question was, if Iran were to launch a nuclear attack on Israel, what would our response be? And I want the Iranians to know that if I'm the president, we will attack Iran. And I want them to understand that, because it does mean that they have to look very carefully at their society. Because whatever stage of development they might be in their nuclear weapons program in the next 10 years, during which they might foolishly consider launching an attack on Israel, we would be able to totally obliterate them. That's a terrible thing to say, but those people who run Iran need to understand that, because that perhaps will deter them from doing something that would be reckless, foolish, and tragic.
A lot of other experts look at Iran and they say there is a mass of Iranian people who want to be allied with the United States, want a democracy. And when they heard you say that if Iran attacked Israel with nuclear weapons, we would obliterate Iran, they say that undermines, experts say that undermines exactly the kind of people we want to be encouraging in Iran.
Well, the experts I consult with don't say that, George.
Obliterate them. What do you think of that language?
Well, it's not the language that we need right now, and I think it's language that's reflective of George Bush. We have had a foreign policy of bluster and saber rattling and tough talk, and in the meantime we make a series of strategic decisions that actually strengthen Iran. And you know, the irony is, of course, Senator Clinton during the course of this campaign has at times said we shouldn't speculate about Iran. You know, we've got to be cautious when we're running for president. She scolded me on a couple of occasions about this issue, and yet a few days before an election, she's willing to use that language.
Well, of course the United States would have to respond if Israel's attacked. They're our foremost ally in the region. But Senator Obama is right. His foreign policy is going to be one of diplomacy, of negotiation, of getting our allies to pressure Iran, of going to the United Nations Security Council. I just don't think you have to saber rattle. This is President Bush talking about what he's going to do in Iraq and Iran with North Korea. That hasn't worked.
Israel is an ally of ours. It is the most important ally we have in the region, and there is no doubt that we would act forcefully and appropriately on any attack against Iran, nuclear or otherwise. So, but it is important that we use language that sends a signal to the world community that we're shifting from the sort of cowboy diplomacy or lack of diplomacy that we've seen out of George Bush. And this kind of language is not helpful. When Iran is able to go to the United Nations complaining about the statements made and get some sympathy, that's a sign that we are taking the wrong approach.